The scent of October is usually dry leaves and wood smoke, but on our farm, it has always smelled like wet sugar and rot. We are the Holloways, and in this valley, our name is synonymous with the grand harvest. Every year, the town waits for our reveal. The morning of November 1st, when the sprawling acreage behind our barn is lit by the grins of 1,000 jack-o'-lanterns. It is a tradition that demands perfection. It is a tradition that demands sacrifice, though I never understood what that word truly meant until the knife was in my hand. It began on October 27th. The pressure was already a physical weight in the air, pressing down on the tin roof of the carving shed. My father, a man whose hands were calloused into something resembling tree bark, stood at the head of the long wooden table. He was the conductor of this orange symphony. My brothers, hulking and silent, sharpened their instruments with rhythmic, grating strokes. I was the youngest, the innocent, the one who was just happy to be allowed to hold the boning knife. The soil was good this year, Father rumbled, his voice like gravel grinding together. The vines drank deep. These will be the finest faces we've ever made. He hauled the first gourd onto the table. It was a monstrosity, easily 80 pounds, with a rind as pale and sickly as old skin. It didn't sit flat. It slumped, looking almost tired. "Julian," Father said, looking at me, "you take the lead. Open it up." I stepped forward, my chest swelling with pride. I gripped the heavy, serrated carving saw. The air in the shed was cold, yet the pumpkin radiated a strange, feverish warmth against my palm as I steadied it. I aligned the blade with the top of the stem, intending to cut the hexagonal lid. I pushed the blade in. Usually, there is a hollow pop, followed by the dry crunch of fiber snapping. Not this time. The knife sank in with a wet, sucking sound, like a boot stepping into deep mud. Resistance was spongy, not fibrous. I hesitated. "Don't stop," Father commanded, his eyes gleaming in the low-hanging bulb light. I sawed. Schluck, schluck. Liquid bubbled up around the steel blade. It wasn't the clear, sticky sap of a vegetable. It was thick. It was crimson. It ran over my knuckles, hot and iron-scented. "Pa," I whispered, pulling my hand back. The blood, because there was no other word for it, dripped from my fingers onto the sawdust floor. "It's bleeding." My brothers stopped sharpening their knives. The shed went silent, save for the drip, drip, drip of the fluid hitting the floor. Father didn't flinch. He walked over, dipped a finger into the red slurry pooling around the stem, and tasted it. He closed his eyes, a look of almost religious ecstasy passing over his weathered face. "The earth gives what the earth takes," he murmured. Then his eyes snapped open, hard and black. "It is just iron-rich soil, Julian. The roots went deep. Do not waste the gift. Carve." I looked at the red on my hands. It was sticky, drying fast. I wanted to run. I wanted to vomit. But in the Holloway house, disobedience was a sin worse than death. I wiped my hands on my apron, staining the canvas dark, and gripped the handle again. I pulled the lid off. The sound was a wet tear. Inside, there was no stringy pulp, no pale seeds. The cavity was filled with a dense, wet meat, pulsing softly. "Scoop it," Father ordered. I reached in with the metal ladle. The sound of the spoon scraping against the interior wetness made my teeth ache. I pulled out a heap of red viscera. Embedded in the gore were things that looked like seeds, but they were too white, too smooth. They looked like teeth. Molars, to be exact. "Keep going," one of my brothers grunted, his eyes fixated on the wet heap. "We have hundreds to finish." By the night of October 29th, the shed had become a slaughterhouse. The smell was overpowering. It wasn't just iron anymore, it was the stench of bowels and opened meat. We had carved through 50 of the special batch. Every single one of them bled. Every single one of them was warm to the touch. I hadn't slept in 2 days. The exhaustion was making the edges of my vision blur. I started seeing things that couldn't be there. When I drove the knife into the rind to carve a jagged smile, I swore I heard a sharp intake of breath. When I gouged out a triangular eye, the pumpkin seemed to shudder. "Focus, Julian," Father barked, slapping the back of my head. "Mr. Henderson is coming to inspect the progress. We need the front row ready." Mr. Henderson was the town councilman, a jovial man with a belly that strained his plaid shirts. He arrived as the sun was setting, casting long, bruised shadows across the farm. He stepped into the shed and stopped dead. "Good Lord," Henderson choked, covering his nose with a handkerchief. "What have you got rotting in here, Holloway?" "It smells like a butcher shop." "Just the fertilizer, Tom," Father said, wiping a bloody knife on his pant leg. He moved between Henderson and the table where I was working on a particularly large, misshapen gourd. "Come to the back. I have some cider." I just wanted to, check the numbers for the festival," Henderson stammered, his eyes darting to the pile of red pulp in the corner. Is that meat?" "Come to the back," Father repeated. His voice wasn't a request anymore. My brothers stood up from their stools, blocking the exit. Mr. Henderson looked at me. His eyes were wide, pleading. "Julian, what's going on, son?" I looked down at the pumpkin in front of me. I had just finished the mouth. A scream was building in my throat, but I was the innocent. I was the good son. I looked up at Mr. Henderson and forced a smile that mirrored the jagged grin of the lantern. "It's just the harvest, sir," I said hollowly. Mr. Henderson was ushered into the back room. The door closed. A moment later, a scream tore through the shed, high, wet, and abruptly silenced. It was followed by the heavy thud of a butcher's cleaver hitting wood. I froze. The knife slipped in my hand, slicing my thumb. Father emerged 5 minutes later. He was dragging a heavy sack, which he tossed into the corner with the refuse. Then he walked out to the truck and returned carrying something heavy wrapped in burlap. He slammed it onto my workstation. It was round. It was roughly the size of a head. The burlap fell away. It was a pumpkin. But it was wrong. The skin was too smooth, lacking the natural ridges. It was pale, with a splatter of freckles that looked entirely too human, and it was wet, freshly picked. "A new variety," Father said, panting slightly, fresh from the back room. "This one is for the centerpiece. Carve it well, Julian. It's special." I stared at the gourd. I touched the skin. It yielded slightly, like flesh. "Pa," I whimpered. "Carve." I picked up the knife. I placed the tip against the surface. As I pushed, I didn't hear the crunch of a vegetable. I heard a low, gurgling moan. "Please," a voice whispered in my head. Or maybe it came from the table. "Please, Julian." I squeezed my eyes shut. I was just tired. I was just imagining things. It was a pumpkin. It was just a pumpkin. I plunged the knife in. Blood sprayed across my face, hot and salty. The night of October 31st was a blur of madness. We were behind schedule. The field needed to be set. The town was sleeping, unaware of the artistry happening in the Holloway shed. My brothers and I worked in a frenzy, slashing, scooping, gouging. We weren't just carving faces anymore. We were liberating them. The pile of pumpkins grew. But as the hours wore on, my dissociation shattered. I picked up a small, delicate gourd. It felt fragile. As I raised the knife, I noticed a scar on the rind, a small, jagged line, exactly like the one on the cheek of Mrs. Gable, the librarian who had come by yesterday to ask about purchasing hay bales. She hadn't left either. I looked around the shed. Really looked. There were no stems on these pumpkins. There were stumps. Neck stumps. The pulp I had been scooping all week. Brains, viscera, tongues. I dropped the knife. It clattered on the blood-slicked floor. "I can't," I gasped, backing away. "Pa, they're people. You're turning them into..." Father turned slowly. He was covered in gore from head to toe, a demon in denim. He held a lantern in one hand, the candle already lit. "They are vessels, Julian," he said, his voice trembling with reverence. "Empty, useless vessels until we give them light. We are granting them immortality. We are making them smile forever." He gestured to the open barn doors. "Look at the field. Look at our work." I stumbled to the door. The moon was full, casting a pale silver light over the acreage. Hundreds of stakes had been driven into the ground, and on every stake a head rested. But they weren't just heads. They had been hollowed out. The tops of the skulls had been sawn off, the contents scooped clean. Faces had been carved into the flesh, skin peeled back to reveal the bone beneath, lips sliced away to create eternal skeletal grins. And inside each one, a candle flickered. The heat from the flames cooked the remaining meat, filling the night air with the smell of roasting pork. The eyes, God, the eyes were gone, replaced by triangular holes that glowed with hellish yellow light. "Beautiful," my brother whispered, standing beside me. "But we aren't done," Father said, looming behind me. "We need one more, the innocent, the one to watch over the flock." I spun around, but my brother was faster. He grabbed my arms, pinning them behind my back. "No," I screamed, thrashing against his grip. "Pa, please, I'm your son." Father stroked my cheek with a blood-stained finger. He looked sad, but resolved. He picked up the curved boning knife and a heavy metal spoon. "You have the purest heart, Julian," he said softly. "You will burn the brightest." He didn't kill me. That would have ruined the art. The pain was white and blinding as the knife traced the circumference of my hairline. I screamed until my throat tore, but the sound was swallowed by the vast empty night. I felt the air hit my brain as the lid was lifted. I felt the cold metal of the spoon. Then the darkness came, but not total darkness. I am aware of the stake driven up through my neck, holding me upright. I am aware of the cold wind biting at my exposed facial muscles. I can see the field. It is magnificent. Hundreds of glowing faces. My neighbors, my friends, all smiling their wide, skinless smiles at me. And I can feel the heat. There is a candle inside my empty skull. It flickers and dances, burning the back of my eyes. I try to scream, but my mouth has been carved into a permanent, silent O. The sun is rising now, November 1st. The townspeople are coming down the road. I can see their cars. They are coming to see the grand harvest. They will scream, they will run, but they won't get far. Pa is waiting by the gate with the rest of the family, and he has plenty of knives left. After all, the field is big, and we have so many more empty stakes to fill. I just hope they use a sharp blade for the next batch. The sawing. The sawing is the worst part.